Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to
Something else.
something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matata, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Arya.
And welcome to episode number 120. I swear I know what episode I'm on of Something Else. Feast your hair holes on this week's episode as we take a look at Mid-South Wrestling from September 3rd, 1983. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Wendy Chu to my Rosemary. It's Trey. Trey, how you doing today?
Am I Wendy Chu because I'm sleepy?
I just figured because I'm a huge fan of the Demon Assassin, and that match is on right now. That is Wendy Chu, right?
I have no idea.
Hope to God I'm right. Whoever the hell Kalani Jordan wrestled at No Mercy, that's who Trey is. And she's currently no-selling a bunch of splashes and kicks to the head. But, so yeah, welcome to our fine little audio program, episode number 120, if you're a normal person and counts normally. You might be wondering, where the fuck is World Class this week? You always do 2 shows. You're only giving us Mid-South? That's like, first of all, calm your ass. But secondly, whatever the hell's wrong with this week's episode, WWE never put it up. And the only copy we were able to find, the video was so poor, it wasn't even worth trying to get through it. So we took a week off, and we're just going to talk about Mid-South Wrestling, get in our usual offbeat shenanigans, and call it a day.
And actually, the video that we found wasn't the TV from that week. It was the Labor Day Star Wars show from September 5th, and it looked like it was a 20th generation VHS tape, so we decided it wasn't worth it.
I honestly didn't even know that. I just took your word for it that it was the TV show.
I told you what it was.
I wasn't paying attention. I think I was at work when you sent that to me, so I just kind of been like, okay.
No,
Now,
you were out drinking with your coworkers is what it was.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't drank. Longtime listeners of this show will recall that I had surgery last August. I haven't drank since then. I had my first drink this past Friday because we got out early from work because for whatever reason, the Friday before a Monday holiday, we get half a day. So we got off early and we went out for Chinese food for a late lunch, early dinner. And I had an appletini because JD from Scrubs has never done me wrong. Well, that motherfucker did me wrong today or Friday because that appletini kicked my little white ass.
I had a blueberry mule today that was very tasty. I'm a fan of a good Moscow Mule, and this one was had blueberry vodka and like actual blueberries in it. It was very pleasant.
I also had a peanut butter and jelly shot, and I'm not even sure what the jelly part of it is. It was like a peanut butter vodka type thing. That was really fucking good. And those two things together, they're like, believe me, I think I was the least drunk out of everybody, and we were there for like 2 hours just sobering up. And oh my God, Kalani Jordan and the woman who may or may not be Wendy Chu just fell off the top rope on top of each other.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that was not the plan. And I hope you weren't planning on watching the show because I'm actively spoiling it for you as we're recording this.
Let me know if Julia shows up.
Julia, the Stardom girl.
Yeah.
If she
Yeah,
does,
yes.
if she
late,
does,
late of Late of Dreamstar fighting Marigold, but formerly of Stardom, yes.
So not Julia Hart. Oh, that would probably be newsworthy.
Yeah,
If
I think the other Julia is a little bit better at this point.
if Julia with a G shows up, there's a decent chance they better put a graphic at the bottom of the screen because I don't know if I'd recognize her. So just we'll see. By the
You
way,
were looking for a
Chase U broke up, or it may not have completely broke up, but the big muscle guy who may or may not have been Ridge Holland beat the shit out of everybody else after they lost the tag team titles.
Oh.
Yeah.
What will become of Thea Hale?
She was very gobsmacked, and she was the only person who didn't get their ass kicked. Because,
Something, her something.
So, well, she needs to be consoled. So if you can get to Denver, Colorado sometime soon, that's
We're
where
being problematic. We're being problematic right off the get-go today.
Oh yeah, we are. I mean, this is actually thankfully Mid-South must have known we wouldn't have a world class to review because they gave us a lot of audio and a lot of stuff to talk about. But before we talk about that, we're gonna. I want to note that I just did the TNA show that's going to come out tomorrow with Cindy right before you and I started the show, and it was 90 plus minutes, so it was very much a you and me show, and it starts with me ripping Jeff Jarrett a new asshole.
Oh, that's funny. This year of all years, when Jeff Jarrett is one of the most beloved people in wrestling.
I honestly I didn't even think about that, but like because we're doing the anniversary of the TNA pay-per-views in 2002, September 4th and 11th of 2002, they didn't do a show. The 4th was a best of the X Division show, and the 11th they had off for the anniversary of 9/11. So we watched. Do you remember the 2004 when they did the best damn sports show period? They did two specials with them. Well, we reviewed the first one for the show that airs tomorrow, and oh my god, that show, everything that had nothing to do with in-ring wrestling fucking sucked. The very first thing on the show, the very first thing, was Chris Rose of the Best Damn Sports Show period talking about how wrestling is fake here on this pro wrestling show.
Oh, terrific.
Yes, and it just goes up from there.
The only thing that I remember about that show was that Jeff Hardy took his shirt off, like he was about to like dive off the cage or something, and Dusty Rhodes yells, "He's getting naked."
That's next week's show. This week's show was an Ultimate X match where they didn't even tell us who was in the match until they were coming out for the match. It was Chris Sabin, Elix Skipper, and Sanjay Dutt. Tom Arnold was doing commentary, and no one bothered to give him a format or anything telling him what their names were, or if they did, he didn't give a fuck because he just called them the black guy, the white guy, and the Indian guy.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So Sanjay Dutt and somebody, I assume.
Elix Skipper and Chris Sabin.
There we go. That's a white guy, a black guy, and an Indian guy. Sounds like the beginning of a bad joke.
Oh my god, like that was just. By the way, for those who care, Kalani Jordan retained the NXT title. Yeah, it's like they had 6 matches in an hour, and then 3 of them were X Division matches. So that sounds like, hey, that's a pretty fun little show. And again, as long as you ignore that the Best Damn Sports Show people were there, it was a perfectly fine show. Unfortunately, the 55% of the show that wasn't in-ring pro wrestling really, 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 really sucked.
So it's like watching a WWE pay-per-view.
I mean, if you're watching, I guess if the 55% are those Peacock commercials in between, sure.
Just the wrestling is good and everything sucks around it.
Pretty much. Speaking of which, you want to talk about Bash in Berlin at all?
I thought it was a pretty good show. I I did a pretty thorough bitching when we were kind of messaging about it. I think you had watched it live, and I was watching it a few
Yeah.
hours later. And it's just I can't remember what's up. I think it was the crowd. And when I realized, because it was the same as the show in France, and it's like, yeah, a loud, active crowd is great and all, but when you're not reacting to the wrestling and it feels like you just came there to chant shit and play the role of an audience, that that kind of gets under my skin.
I'll be honest, it's like it. I guess it depends because it didn't seem like they were necessarily detracting from the show. I think like I would rather have a crowd like this than the average American crowd, and I'd rather have it a million times before the crowds that would just hijack every week the Raw because they did it once after WrestleMania and gave that crowd a slammy. So then every week on Raw it just became hijack Raw.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Uh,
And fucking Michael Cole has been doing this job for 27 years. Cannot identify a fucking short arm scissors.
I,
I'm
I,
gonna throw
I
him out a fucking window.
I would like to think, because again, sometimes you just have a fucking brain fart. So I will chalk it up as a brain fart at least, that it's like, it happened and it was just like one of those things of like, I know this, but for some reason my head has completely blanked on what the hell a short arm scissors is. I forget what he called it. What did he call it? Because there was something wacky, if I recall correctly.
It, it was some vague because he said it was a new hold, and I'm like, that's fucking. I know you've seen that hold before. Which who was Wade Barrett did actually call it a short arm scissors. So thank you, Wade Barrett.
But I think it was a new hold to whoever did it.
Cody's never done a short arm scissors before.
Was it Cody that did it?
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't tell you that he has or has not. And by the way, Andre Chase, who got pile drove on the announce table, um, has been taken away in an ambulance to a local medical facility. Actually, since Triple H is there, is it now a hospital or is it still just a local medical facility?
I don't know. You know what I didn't realize for way too long? That's one of the Bravado brothers. Remember the
Yeah.
Bravado brothers from like
Yep.
early aughts, Ring of Honor and Evolve?
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about it until like a year ago. I was reading some old observers and Dave noted, oh, Harlem Bravado, or whichever one this is, signed, and his new name is going to be Andre Chase. And I think Dave even said, why did they only sign one Bravado brother kind of thing? But yeah.
I think the other one ran for office and lost.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
Probably your politics are probably better.
Hopefully.
Yeah, Andre Chase is Harlem Bravado. We don't know the status of Lancelot Bravado.
Were they actually brothers, or is it a Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins deal?
I always thought they were brothers. They look like brothers. Hold on, let me see if I can.
Honestly, I thought the Major brothers were brothers until it came out that they weren't, because they looked a lot alike for two people who weren't brothers until they actually both got personalities and did their best to differentiate between the two. But when they were just the Major brothers, I'm like, yeah, they're brothers, obviously.
According to Cage Match, the Bravado brothers are Shoot brothers.
Thank you, Cage Match. More reliable than Wikipedia. That should be their tagline.
There you go.
And Tony D'Angelo has come out with all of his people for his match. If
That's several people.
If you offered me $1,000 to name any other person in that group, I would be taking none of your money.
Oh, I know one. Because that was like the brief period that I was watching NXT in the lead up to WrestleMania, and I was like, what the fuck kind of name is Luca Crucifino? So one of them is Luca Crucifino.
What the fuck kind of name is Luca Crucifino?
That's what I said. The other guy's name is Stacks. And then the girl's name is Alexandra Rizzo or Adriana Rizzo or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, you could have given. I probably could have guessed Stacks, but you could have given me until Wednesday morning at 2 a.m. and I would not have guessed the other names. And this is like the second time now I've seen Obafemi make an entrance and rip his title belt up because he rips off the extension on the belt. Makes me wonder why he keeps putting it on the belt if he's just going to rip it off during his entrance.
Maybe he should be a belt over the shoulder type of champion.
He doesn't even wear the belt. He comes out carrying it. And it has the,
Oh,
yeah.
well, I don't know.
Oh, boy. So we're almost 20 minutes into the show. Let's talk about some Mid-South. And we actually start, well, I thought this was going to be big news, but it's more Reiser isn't here this week. But we've been doing the show, or I've been doing the show since December 1981. So we're approaching 2 years of Mid-South Wrestling. And Boyd Pierce has always, always, always been the lead announcer, except when they would do like the year-end best of show. Bill Watts would be standing in an empty building by himself, pitching it to stuff. But
Yeah.
for actual shows, Boyd Pierce has always been the lead announcer until today. Because out goes Boyd Pierce and in comes Jim Ross. So let's go to Jim Ross and this week's co-host, Cowboy Bill Watts.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Mid-South Championship Wrestling right here. And I'll tell you, it's going to be another great hour of wrestling action. I'm Jim Ross, and I'll be your host for this hour of wrestling. Of course, the man to my left is no stranger to you wrestling fans, Cowboy Bill Watts. And Bill, Grizzly Smith has put together another tremendous wrestling card. And there's some names on here, some international stars, and I know that you're anxious to tell the people about some of the things that will be happening this hour.
Well, we have the Road Warriors, international tag team champions from Atlanta, Georgia. They'll be against Hacksaw Duggan and Magnum TA, the Mid-South tag champions. This will be a non-title bout. Also, Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer's here, the Junkyard Dog, Ted DiBiase, King Kong Bundy, Crusher Darso, and a lot of others. You know, though, Jim, a couple of weeks ago, Akbar kind of pricked my curiosity a little bit in that he was talking about the missing link being Max and being emotionally and mentally stable, but he said that's the only name you need to know. There's something vaguely haunting about Max. It's almost like I know the guy, except it doesn't all fit. I don't know what it is, but I interviewed Skandar Akbar earlier today and put the question to him. Let's hear his answer.
You know, 2 weeks ago here on Mid-South Wrestling, you revealed something about the man called the missing link, that he was not the missing link, and that you took exception to anybody referring to him as such because that seemed to say that he was mentally unstable or something, that his name was Max. Do you care to give us any further information?
Well, that's all you, Bill Watts. Mid-South needs to know Max. And I do resent the fact that you people continually believe this man is mentally unbalanced. Couldn't it be that this man is a super athlete, perhaps when you were North American champion, Bill Watts, that beat you? You just don't recognize exactly who the man is. He could be from some foreign country, but this man is not insane. He is as sane as you people watching television at this moment.
This event, one fall with a 10-minute...
All right, that ended a little too promptly for my taste. But, so this week's show, we're going to have some fine wrestling action, including the Road Warriors out of Georgia. So, yes, to answer Trey's question from last week, the Road Warriors are actually on this week's show. Plus, we're going to have Crusher Darso. He's back. We're going to have some other stuff. And then we get a quick little promo with General Skandar Akbar to talk about Max. Because... of all
the vehemence, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Of all the things in wrestling to like be mad about, it's like the guy's chosen wrestling name is the missing link, and Akbar has determined that we cannot do that. That is offensive. You may think that he is a crazy man if he has a name like the missing link in a territory with all the fucking names we've seen on this show, and the missing link is the one that's a little too much. And
the main guy's name is the Junkyard Dog.
I mean, Akbar may think he's mentally unstable.
Okay, the vehemence with which Akbar continues to insist that Max is not insane, I think is kind of suspicious, and it makes me wonder what the insecurity is there.
It almost reminds me, of when my psychiatrist once insisted that I was depressed, and I told her that I wasn't depressed, and me arguing that I wasn't depressed made her increase my medication. True story, by the way. And I have a little bit of resentment to this woman, by the way. She also told me I was going to hell when I tried coming out of the closet to her. So, yeah, she's
that wouldn't have lasted. That wouldn't. The first hint I got of some shit like that, I'd have been gone.
Sadly, I was not up until that point, because that happened when I was 18. But up until that point, I did not have a choice in the matter about seeing her. We'll leave it at that. But anyway, so yeah, that reminded me kind of that, where it's like, hey, Max is not a crazy person. Who knows? Maybe Max isn't a crazy person, but maybe General Skandar Akbar and Max need to come up with a better way to communicate that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. He wrestles very weird and is disconcerting. I've never seen someone's offense oriented towards headbutts to the kidneys, which I guess it works, but so I think this opening match was a rib on you and me in particular.
Well, we go to our first match, which is this week's winner of the Worst Thing Matchmaker Grizzly Smith Has Ever Done award. It is Max, aka the Missing Link, versus White Lightning, Tim Horner. Oh God, I'm just happy he doesn't have a Smoky Mountain theme song on Mid-South. Although
I think that song had not been recorded yet. I could be wrong.
Okay,
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up right now.
Thunder rolls and the lightning strikes.
April 1991.
So yeah,
the final single from Garth Brooks' album No Fences.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that Tim Horner would not have been able to use that song here in 1983.
By the way, if everyone, if you've never heard it, you should go and listen to the Garth Brooks version. But if you're not a fan of country, there is a very cool Seether cover of that song.
Interesting. I now need to go check that out.
Yeah.
So it turns out, as you could tell by the second of ring introductions we played, that it's not so much that Boyd has been replaced at the commentary desk. It's that Reiser's in here, and thank God they didn't use that guy they used earlier this year when Reiser took his last vacation. I think that was when you started, was when that other guy did the announcing.
Maybe. I remember the first episode that I watched was the one where Bill Mercer's daughter graduated, so we got Mark Lawrence as the announcer on World Class that day.
Okay, so yeah, you weren't here for the guy that took over the Mid-South announcing for a week. Or for 2 weeks, because these shows are taped 2 at a time. But so Reiser's apparently on vacation. JR said that Horner is worried about staying alive, and you can tell by the way he used his walk, he's Pam Lawson's man, no time to talk. And Max won with a headbutt to the chest.
Indeed he did.
This is why Trey and I don't tell each other jokes or lines about what we're going to say during the show, because I wrote that specifically to make him pop, and pop he did.
That's what our notes are. It's mostly just ideas of things to say to pop each other.
Yes, because hey, we can see the listener numbers as well as everyone else can. This show is designed to pop ourselves.
Yeah, we mainly do this for our own enjoyment.
And because in 5 years, when we become super famous and someone goes back to listen to these, we're going to get canceled.
Can't wait. Can't wait. Look forward to getting canceled again.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
So up next, we had tag team champions Hacksaw Duggan and Magnum TA versus the international tag team champions, the Road Warriors, without Precious Paul Ellering. Before we get into what happened to Paul Ellering, I should note that Boyd actually said Duggan's name correctly and did not call him Duggan this week, now that Duggan was standing 5 feet away from him and could hear every word he said. So, yeah. Things you don't know is somehow the International Tag Team Champions, it's been established in Mid-South canon, is less than the Mid-South Tag Team Champions. So the champions of just the Mid-South region of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Oklahoma are greater than the champions of the entire international.
And that's not even the biggest problem with that. The biggest problem is that they are not the international tag team champions. Those are the national tag team championships that are competed for in Georgia Championship Wrestling. There is an NWA International Tag Team Championship, but that's an All Japan. In fact, like to this day, it's part of the
double
All
title.
Japan double cut. Yeah.
So I knew the international tag titles was a thing because I remembered, on the 605 WCW show, the Road Warriors for years were introduced as the international tag team champions, but it was never explained what the hell those were. So if you didn't know, you just didn't know.
And they were international tag team champions at least once, probably more than once.
Yeah. So so when they said that, I just didn't even bother to question this.
Let me see. What's today? September 3rd, 1983. Giant Baba and Jumbo Saruta are the current international tag team champions. The Road Warriors won them in March of 1987 and kept them until actually it was the match in June 1988 where they unified the NWA International Tag Team title with the PWF Tag Team title to create what is today the All Japan World Tag Team Championship. And I am amazed because they've had a new Triple Crown belt for I don't know, close to 10 years now. They are still carrying around those old ass tag belts, both of them.
I'll be honest, even though the belts are teeny tiny, in comparison to modern day belts, I did anytime I'd see pictures from Japan and you'd have Masawa and whoever with all 3 title belts, that always looked cool to me. Because didn't they also get a trophy or something?
Yeah, it was just a part of pretty much any title match that there'd be a big trophy.
So back to this. Watts claims that Hawk and Animal have attacked their manager, Paul Ellering. They ripped his clothes off, and they told him that no one manages them. And that's the story of the Road Warriors, is that Paul Ellering never manages them ever again.
I assume they made amends at some point. I bet the Road Warriors took this trip to Louisiana and they had to book their own travel and they were like, we gotta fucking get Paul back.
I wanted Watts to try to explain how the Paul Ellering we saw on this show last year, the hippie guy, was now the same guy who managed these 2 big, rough, tough biker motherfuckers. This, I think I said it, but it was Duggan and TA versus the Road Warriors. Watts said that Duggan does not know the word quit. Now, he doesn't know the meaning of the word quit. He just doesn't know the word. I thought that was really sad that a man who, at the very least in his mid-20s, did not know such a simple, second grade word at this point.
Didn't he go to college?
Yes. There's a famous scene where on an episode of Worldwide, Shivani says that he's a college-educated man, and Bobby Heenan loses his shit and laughs for the entire match about Duggan going to college. So maybe that's why he graduated college, because he didn't know you could quit college, because he didn't know quit was a word.
Southern Methodist University.
Well, to be fair, wasn't that the college that got the death penalty?
No, it's so I'm confused. Okay, yeah. Okay. I was confused because I was looking at Wikipedia and it was Taos County, New Mexico, which I'm like, isn't Methodist in Dallas? And I was reading it wrong. It's in Dallas with a satellite campus in Taos County, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm. They were a big football program, but they kept violating the rules. So the NCAA gave them the death penalty, so they could not compete for championships anymore.
You say the death sentence. I just imagine two guys from the NCAA giving them the old America's Most Wanted finishing move.
By the way, breaking news here on the show that airs 2 days later: Obafemi is still the NXT North American champion.
Good for him.
Yes, good for him. So this match was honestly better than I expected, but I think that's mostly because my expectations were so low it wasn't even funny. Now, with that said, I saw the finish and I'm like, oh my God, Trae blew his stack. So Trae, when you saw this finish, did you blow your stack?
No. I wrote Hawk is not Mil Mascaras, so he is not allowed to dive off the top rope.
So the finish, Duggan spears Animal. He essentially has the match won. So, like, missed time, whatever. He covers Animal. 1, 2. He gets up because he's not going to pin Animal. And Hawk is a couple seconds too late. Hawk dives off the top rope with a splash to Animal because now Duggan has completely moved out of the way. And because Hawk came off the top rope, it is a disqualification.
You know, I could live with it if it was applied consistently. But the fact that like 2 months ago or whatever on the show that Watts had some convoluted bullshit explanation for why Mil Mascaras was allowed to dive off the top rope when nobody else is, it just made me fucking angry.
Wasn't it that he fell off the top rope or something? Some bullshit like that?
Something like that.
So yeah, Duggan and TA win. We'll see if anything else comes up of this. And by the way, I have to ask you, you've seen the commercial that they play about 1 million times every week where Triple H plugs WrestleMania in Vegas, right?
Yes.
Why is he so angry when he's talking about it?
Because he wanted to go to Minneapolis? I don't know.
Maybe. And Nick Khan got his way.
Maybe. I don't know. I think Minneapolis will probably be nicer weather, and I don't know. April, it might not be too hot yet.
Fingers crossed. Hopefully, I do not sweat my full ass off next year. So we're gonna go now back to Watts and JR, who are gonna talk about Junkyard Dog being a great humanitarian.
I think it's by unanimous opinion that the man who is the top wrestling superstar in the world today is the Junkyard Dog. And we've watched him develop here on Mid-South, where he came through here after playing football for the Green Bay Packers, was green, had a great heart, but had to learn. He went to Canada, he went to Germany, he learned his trade. Like he said, he got beat 57 straight times. But then he emerged as a man who could go through it all, a big, tough stallion that could handle all opponents. But the one thing is, I think, is so great, when you see a man become a superstar, he oftentimes loses his focus or his identity or forgets what made him. This man, this people's champion, never forgets that, and he helps young and old, white, black, green, it doesn't make any difference. There was a youngster, Travis Mathern, who was badly burned, 2nd and 3rd degree burns over his whole body. He's been in the hospital over a month. Ed Martin of WWL Television in New Orleans contacted us and asked if the Junkyard Dog, this is a kid that wanted to see his hero, the Junkyard Dog, if he would have the time to come visit him. And I want you to know the Junkyard Dog's schedule is probably the busiest in the world today. But he took the time. Ed Martin, WWL Television, were there to record it. Let's see what a great heart this man has, and then we'll go to the ring and watch him in action.
Oh, right. So Junkyard Dog, he's unquestionably the biggest star. And it's funny because, like, saying you're green is a very inside wrestling terminology, but Watts calls him green because Junkyard Dog was definitely green before he's currently green. Because it's not like, he's this great polished wrestler nowadays. He's definitely greener 7 years ago. But anyway, he talks about how Dog lost 57 straight matches, but then he went to Canada, so now he's the people's champion who helps people who are white, black, or green. If you're
I would
green,
I would like to see the Junkyard Dog visit a green child.
So then they show us a video of him visiting a child who was burned, and and they show the news clip, and the newscaster, before Dog walks in, the newscaster said the child was stunned when a camera crew showed up in his room with reporters. You don't say. You don't fucking say if you're sitting here and suddenly a camera crew comes, bursting into your room. Like, the fact he didn't say what the fuck, is, I think the biggest news story of that one. But yeah, he got to meet the...
It'd be more remarkable if he didn't.
Yeah. If right now, you sitting right there, you're recording the show and suddenly a camera crew breaks into your room and starts asking you questions, what the hell would you do?
What, did they hear about my cat being stuck under the tub?
And they brought the Junkyard Dog to come.
They brought the Junkyard Dog to scare the cat out from under the tub.
Even worse, since the dog's been dead 25 years.
That just makes it scarier.
Yes, it would. Oh my God. So after we watched the video of Junkyard Dog visiting a burned child, if you think there's a chance in hell that he lost to Boris Zirkov, you are Vince Russo. Because, yeah, Dog was not losing here.
No. So during this match, which was the Junkyard Dog against Boris Zirkov, JR lamented that the clothesline was no longer legal in the NFL, which was a surprise to me because I did not realize that clotheslines had ever been legal in the NFL.
I mean, I imagine you can't give somebody a lariat ever, but if you stick your arm out as they're running by, sure, maybe.
That explains why Stan Hansen switched to pro wrestling, so he could lariat people.
There you go. It's why all these bad football players who got cut by their teams in rookie minicamp had to turn to the pro wrestling because football was not tough enough for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So Dog shockingly wins with a thumb. Boyd introduces Dog by saying, "Coming to the ring to the sound of music is the Junkyard Dog." Which is...
Wouldn't that be amazing? The Junkyard Dog coming out to the whatever the fuck is alive
are
with
alive with the sound of music.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna
you
have to.
are 16 going on 17.
What about what was that song from the Music Man? Shaboopy.
Shaboopy. Shaboopy. Shaboopy. The girl that's hard to get.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get on the Fire Pro Wrestling World and do some playing with entrance music later.
When we get a time machine and I go back in time to murder George Scott, you can go back in time to change Dog's theme song.
Yeah, that's very, very wise use of a time machine we would make.
Yes, we would. I told you this yesterday, but I will share it with our listener. It's like I was watching Chi-Town Rumble, and it's like George Scott just got the book in the NWA, and I don't think he realized it was 1989. I think he thought it was still 1979. Like, he brings in Sheik, he renews the push for Dog. Michael Hayes comes in, and it's like, thank God Flair feuded with Steamboat in 77, or we would have had a feud with Flair and fucking Wahoo at this point.
Yeah. Hell, in 77, they were still the young kids killing the business, doing too much.
Yeah. Which makes you think, why wouldn't he have loved the Midnight Express, since they were the young kids killing the business by doing too much stuff?
Did he hate the Midnight Express, or did he just hate Cornette?
I don't know. He pretended Bob Eaton didn't exist, so,
Well, being mean to Bobby Eaton is just like kicking a puppy. Like, why? Why would you do that?
How could you do that?
Bobby Eaton was, by all accounts, the sweetest man alive.
Yes. It's like, I can't. I've never heard anybody anywhere say a mean thing about Bobby Eaton.
Even so, it's pretty famous. Bobby Eaton married Bill Dundee's daughter, who she had been forbidden from dating any of the wrestlers. And apparently one day Bill, he didn't know who, but he heard that she had been seen with a wrestler. And he gets all mad and he goes, "Who is it? Who is it?" And she says, "It's Bobby Eaton." He goes, "Oh, well, you couldn't have picked a better one."
Oh, lordy, 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 lordy. So we go to commercial, come back from commercial, and now Bill Watts is talking about Buzz Sawyer, who, we're supposed to, by the way, remember a few months ago when Buzz Sawyer and Jim Duggan beat up Matt Bourne? Forget that ever existed because it didn't happen. So let's go to Bill Watts to talk about our new wrestler, Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer.
Without a doubt, there's a tough young athlete running around Atlanta called the Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer, and he says he's the only dog in town. Well, he's here today on Mid-South Wrestling, and Precious Paul Ellering sent us a film clip of Buzz Sawyer's workout as he steams himself up and tries to get ready for the Junkyard Dog, because everybody wants a shot at the dog. Let's watch now from Atlanta with Buzz Sawyer.
Look into the eyes of the Mad Dog. The training of the Mad Dog for the one and only Junkyard Dog. Junkyard Dog, look at the Mad Dog. No, he's not pretty, but Junkyard Dog, he backs up from no man. No man on God's green earth, least of all, another dog. Look at the Mad Dog, back with his own kind. He feels so at home, Junkyard Dog. He dreams of you at night, and he howls and he screams. He says there's only one dog, and it's me. No, Junkyard Dog. Look at him, he's been training for hours. Look into the eyes of the Mad Dog. Look into his eyes, Junkyard Dog, and see what real fear is. There can only be one dog, and it's the Mad Dog.
This event.
So I love that Precious Paul keeps telling us to look into Buzz Sawyer's eyes, but we never actually get a close-up of Buzz Sawyer's face. So it was like a long shot of like a dog or a dog gnawing on whatever the hell Buzz Sawyer had on his arm.
We did get a shot of Buzz practicing some autoerotic asphyxiation here.
Oh, of course. I mean, how else would you prepare for a match with the Junkyard Dog?
That's a fair point.
He also trained by attacking cinder blocks with a chain, which was what you do to prepare for a match with the Junkyard Dog, apparently.
Yeah, well, he's got a very hard head, and if you want to smash the head with a chain, you better practice on some cinder blocks.
I mean, that's true, but, you're not supposed to use a chain while you're in a wrestling match.
What if it's a chain match?
True, but typically, unless you're Vince Russo, the first match in a feud is not a chain match.
Yeah, it'll be a chain match, and then a something on the pole, and then it'll end with a one-on-one singles match.
That'll end by count out.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, clearly they're building Sawyer up for Dog.
Oh.
They showed a very strange video to that end here.
We then get the man in action. Mad Dog Buzz Sawyer versus John E. Rich. So much for Rich's push. But I guess this does make a little bit of sense since Buzz is/was feuding with John E.'s cousin Tommy Rich in Atlanta. We find out that Buzz Sawyer, who's been North American champion for about 6 weeks, is in a contract dispute with Mid-South because there's not enough competition here for the North American title. I mean, there's only like 20 people in the territory, so what the hell do you expect?
That Butch Reed is in contract dispute?
Yes.
You said Buzz Sawyer.
Well, Buzz Sawyer may have been also in a contract dispute, but specifically Butch Reed was.
Now who's correcting who about calling people the wrong name?
Occasionally I get one wrong.
Well, at least we're not doing World Class this week, so I won't call Buddy Roberts Buddy Rogers.
And hey, I only even correct you on that like once every other time too. So this was a longer, more competitive match than I expected. I mean, I guess Rich is a man who regularly wins matches against the tag team champions. But unfortunately for Rich, he wasn't wrestling the tag team champions, and Sawyer won with a power slam that Watts marked out for.
Best looking power slam I've seen anybody do on the show.
Yes. We then get the Ted DiBiase Jim Duggan recap of the Ted DiBiase Jim Duggan feud. And Watts says that Duggan has been getting the better of it and has won matches that has kicked DiBiase out of some cities in the Mid-South region. So let's go to Ted DiBiase, who's got a challenge for Jim Duggan.
All you people out there know that Ted DiBiase has been the big cheese, the main man in Mid-South Wrestling for over 2 years. And this thing with Hacksaw Duggan and I has come to a boil. I've had it right up to here with you, Duggan. All these cheap victories that you're claiming over me. Outside interference, what happened here last week on television was the icing on the cake, Duggan. I want to settle this thing once and for all. You've interfered with my lifestyle, everything I do. You've interfered with my pocketbook, Duggan. Right here on television. It's you or me. I want it here right here next week. And if I don't beat you, Duggan, I'll pack my bag and I'll leave Mid-South.
Well, needless to say, Grizzly Smith wouldn't be the great matchmaker he is today if he wouldn't jump on a deal like that. And he confronted Hacksaw Duggan and DiBiase with the contracts. The contracts are signed and sealed. Next week, right here on Mid-South Wrestling, one fall, no disqualification. And DiBiase has publicly said and so stated that if he doesn't beat Duggan, he'll pack and leave. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be war here on Mid-South next week. Now let's go to a man that has picked on Steve Dr. Death a lot verbally, but has been unable to handle him physically in the ring, to Boyd Pierce as King Kong Bundy and Art Cruz get ready to match up.
I would like to think that Boyd Pierce has been picking on Dr. Death Steve Williams, but hasn't been able to match up with him physically. So I originally wrote down, because I just assumed this, but you know what happens when you make an assumption, you make an ass out of you and Emption. I wrote that DiBiase challenged him to a loser leaves Mid-South match, but it's not a loser leaves Mid-South match. It's a, if Ted DiBiase loses, he has to leave Mid-South match, which makes absolutely no sense. Because why would he, like, if Duggan is bothering him so much, why would he want a match where only he would have to leave Mid-South if he loses? Plus, why was there any concern that Grizzly Smith wouldn't be able to get Duggan to agree to said match? I'm like, sure, I'll wrestle a guy where if he loses, he leaves. Because what the hell is going to happen if I lose? Nothing. I'll be here next week to challenge Butch Reed. But it's just kind of weird the way it was booked. And I mean, I'm assuming, and I haven't watched next week's show yet, and I know DiBiase leaves at some point relatively soon, so I'm assuming Duggan's winning next week. But if that's the case, why wouldn't they just say loser leaves town?
Maybe he's trying to leave and he just don't want it to be awkward. So he's just trying. He's gonna throw the match next week. He's gonna jump off the top rope and get disqualified.
Yeah, he's gonna have his foreign object in the front of his tights and not have Akbar take it away. So when they search him, they'll find it. They're like, oh darn, I guess you have to disqualify me now. They're like, oh no, it's okay. We'll give you. We don't want a preview of this match. We'll give you a shot here. He's like, oh really? Okay. I mean, it's a no disqualification match actually, so you know he can jump off the top rope and have all the foreign objects he wants.
It's a shame, unless it happened before I was watching. It's a shame that we hadn't gotten DiBiase versus Tim Horner in a battle of those with the packed front tights.
Oh God, we're gonna have one of those matches later.
Indeed.
So we have King Kong Bundy versus, as he was introduced, young Art Cruz. I looked it up, and Art Cruz was 24 years old at the time, and Bundy was 25. So I mean, I guess technically Bundy was his elder, but I mean, I wouldn't have not called Bundy young King Kong Bundy here. Watts wonders out loud if JYD can thump Bundy. That is a sentence that you can only say on pro wrestling without having religious groups complaining about whether or not someone would please think of the children.
The children love it when Dog thumps people.
That may actually explain why religious leaders are always being accused of having sex with children. We were always just hearing that argument incorrectly. Because
maybe I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
So Bundy beat Poor Art Cruz like he owed him money here, and then hit him with the Atlantic City Avalanche, and that was it in 3 minutes.
And then JR gets yelled at for ringing the bell too soon.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Because, JR rings the bell to a 3 count because, like a normal human being. But Bundy is not normal. And he wants a 5 count. And so Watts chastises JR. Yes, not Bundy. Bundy did not chastise JR for ringing the bell. Bill Watts did.
I forgot to mention, because I wrote it in the notes for the Road Warriors match and I got sidetracked. Boyd Pierce has no sense of self-preservation. He is going to finish his ring introductions, danger be damned.
Yeah, because the tag match just started. They all just started fighting, and fucking Boyd is just like, I know they're fighting next to me, but I'm still gonna fucking introduce the Mid-South Tag Team Champions, whether you like it or not.
That is commitment to your craft. That is what boomers are talking about when they say that nobody wants to work anymore.
No doubt. Crusher Darso with his baggy Daisy Dukes and rope belt versus George Weingroff and his 10-inch cock. So there's good news, and it doesn't sound like good news on the surface, but I promise there is good news. Darso's baggy Daisy Dukes are shorter this week than they were last week. And you might be wondering, why is that a good thing? It's because his baggy Daisy Dukes were so short, you can now see that he was wearing underwear underneath his shorts, so you were no longer worried about what would happen if he takes a bump.
So I have one note for this match. It reads, if George Weingroff wore the loose-fitting Daisy Dukes that Darso was wearing, he'd have to tuck his dick into a sock.
You might have to get one of those giant scrunchies and tie it up.
And also, Watts said a bunch of ableist shit about the legally blind George Weingroff.
I noted, since Weingroff is blind, is he aware of how big of a penis he has in comparison to other people's penis?
Well, I hadn't thought of that. Maybe he doesn't have the unless he's I don't know. I don't know. My wife is legally blind, so I could have a whole conversation about. Never mind.
We're gonna bring your wife on to discuss this.
No, we're not.
we want her to still be your wife at the end of the show. So
yeah.
Anyway, Darso, no matter how big Weingroff's penis is, he still does the job here to the Bruno Sammartino backbreaker.
But really, even when George Weingroff loses, he wins.
Yes, we all win anytime George Weingroff is here.
Absolutely.
But by the way, I have to note this just because it's bugging the hell out of me. The Titantron for No Mercy, I don't know how to explain this, but it's the middle section is where the entrance is actually, and explains why this is the problem probably. The middle section is a little off, so the M in No Mercy is the bottom half of the M is a few inches to the left of the top half of the M.
Oh, that would drive me crazy.
Yes. It's AEW, the video screens are a second behind live action, so it's probably the TV, thing. Because every time I ever met an AEW show, it's impossible to watch the screen because it's a second behind. So you hear everything before you see it.
They don't even put back in the day, like whatever was happening in the ring you would see on the screen, and they stopped doing that like years ago.
Actually, when Dynamite debuted their new set, I don't know if they still do it now because I'm horrible. I don't pay attention to wrestling except when I'm recording a podcast, apparently. But Dynamite, when they debuted the new set, they were putting the action up on the big screen or on the screen on the entryway, and that's when the first time I noticed it was a second off of real life. Because if you're watching, you can see in the background everything a second after it happens.
Okay, I haven't been to a Dynamite since they changed the sets, so did not know that.
Well, now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
Sergeant Slaughter.
JR, who is, he is a huge step up from Boyd Pierce, with all due love and respect to Boyd. He's been great the entire show, and then he says, we're going to be back with another exciting match. And did not tell us what the next exciting match is going to be. I don't think anyone clued him in on what it was.
Well, you got to keep that big debut a surprise.
Yeah. So it's Rip Rogers versus Rick Rude, and it's Ravishing Rick Rude, but with a misspelled last name. Which, considering it's Mid-South, I don't know whether the name was spelled wrong on purpose or not. Because
that was his shoot last name.
Okay, but I mean, Mid-South has a habit of misspelling everything.
Yeah.
So it's like
that is true.
But
his given name was Richard Irwin Rude, Rood.
Yeah, it's not Rude like he'd be best known as, Rude. It's not even Robert Roode with an E at the end. It's just Rood. And at this point, I'm like, what the fuck did Vern Gagne do to Bill Watts? Because suddenly this show, we're being invaded by Minnesota between the Road Warriors, Crusher Darsow, and now Rick Rude.
Yeah, Rude is 24 years old here as well. He is as skinny as a fence post.
Yes.
Not the Rick Rude, like you always think of him being so fucking jacked. He was so skinny here.
It's funny because even when he was jacked and ripped to shreds, he was still pretty skinny. Like he just had, an amazing body.
He was lean. He was lean as hell, but he was real muscular. So, I've always heard that Rude was really bad early on. Like even when he went to Memphis, he was fine. Like he was green, but he wasn't the shits or anything here. They had a pretty decent little match. Which Rip Rogers is very good. He's like the best worker out of all these job guys. Maybe that was part of it. But Rude was fine and hit a very cool. It was not the Rude Awakening, but you can see kind of the genesis of what will become the Rude Awakening. But it was a very neat swinging neck breaker.
Yes. And I was thinking that, it's like maybe if Rick Rude wrestles like Crusher Darsow, next week or something, then we'll see how good Rude really is at this point. But this was a perfectly fine expiration of time match. But I got to tell you, I got really fucking worried for a second. Because they talk about how we're going to see one of General Skandor Akbar's proteges up next. And I'm like, oh no, they're bringing in Cousin Luke, aren't they? But nope, they're bringing back the one-man gang, who was last seen. He was here last year, I think it was. Because he there last year or early this year. He injured Ernie Ladd and several others, including Mike George. And so One Man Gang is on his way back. And after Rude wins with his neck breaker, we are immediately whisked away to Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. And I think, I don't know if this is worldwide or what show this was, because I don't think it was the official Mid-Atlantic Wrestling show, because they taped 2 shows there.
Okay. I wasted way too much time trying to pinpoint this. And I can't 100% say for sure, because this episode of Worldwide I couldn't find anywhere and apparently doesn't exist. But based on conjecture, I believe that this match was taped April 13th, 1983 for the April 18th Worldwide Wrestling.
Nice.
April 16th, sorry.
Okay. So it's One Man Gang versus Mike Davis. they tell us we're only going to see the finish, but we pitch to the match and they start with the opening bell. We see the entire fucking match. And
It was a minute and 2 seconds.
Whoever these announcers were, they were so fucking annoying.
Oh, they were bad. This was not Bob Caudle. Oh my God. I don't know who these guys were, but they were fucking awful.
For those of us who listen to the Thursday show that I do with Stevie J and Hagen over on ArrogantMarks.com every other week talking about Mid-Atlantic, this is when they randomly pitch to some other match somewhere else that was taped in the same studio. That's where this is coming from. By the way, Roxanne Perez won and now is being confronted by somebody. And we might see in a second whoever that is. But in the meantime, Mike Davis jumps up and down before doing a drop kick. And the announcers say that he's one of the best drop kickers around. Apparently, it didn't work out for him this time. And one-man gang wins with a power slam. Literally, the bell wasn't even done ringing when suddenly JR was back to tell us the show was over. And Julia just showed up on NXT.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, I would not have recognized who it was if it didn't say Julia in big letters behind her.
That's fair. I would recognize Julia, but I can understand if you're not if you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like her. I think she's very good. And people got really mad at me when I said this on Twitter a while back. I'm concerned that she's gonna get the Kenta treatment and they're gonna make her stop doing everything that makes Julia cool.
You motherfucker!
How dare I?
Yes. You're not allowed to have an opinion. So
I'm not allowed to predict things based on historical precedent.
So, and yeah, by the way, it was Triple H running NXT at the time. It wasn't like it was Vince, running NXT when Kenta was there. But so a little bit of ranting, but ultimately it all got smoothed over. So during Bash in Berlin, trending on Twitter was hashtag trans women are con men, which I just couldn't leave alone, and I decided to open my mouth and tweet. I don't even remember what match was happening, but I said whatever happened. But I think we can all agree that the trans women are con men people are assholes who are unhappy and can't believe that anybody else in the world can ever be happy. And the only people who gave any feedback were people who misread it and thought that I was one of the people agreeing with that sentiment.
Here's the thing about Twitter. It really highlights how fucking terrible so many people are at reading comprehension.
Indeed it is.
I've been on a little bit of a sabbatical for I don't know. I was gonna do a week and then I'm at 2 weeks and I'm still not ready to dive back into the cesspool again. So I've been on a little bit of a Twitter sabbatical.
By the way, there are people on Twitter who are marking out a lot more for Julia than I was, but that is what it is.
She's a big deal.
By the way, Vince Verhey, who had the pleasure of actually watching the match instead of seeing it out of their periphery, noted that the last time he saw a PLE match worse than Kalani Jordan versus Wendy Chu, he suspects the Fiend would have been involved. It's like, so two things. Yes, I was right. That was Wendy Chu, but also, yeah, that match was really bad.
God rest Bray Wyatt's soul. He accomplished something that I would think was impossible. I actually went to the bathroom during a Bryan Danielson match because he was wrestling the Fiend.
Which one? Didn't they wrestle? I think they wrestled twice at least.
Royal Rumble 2020.
So the one good match someone pulled out of the Fiend, you went to the bathroom for.
I couldn't even tell you if it was a good match or not because I've never watched it back. I'm
Um,
sorry.
it,
I'm
it, it
sorry.
was it was good in a The Fiend quality, but it wasn't a Bryan Danielson good match.
So on the scale of the Fiend matches, it was pretty good, but on the scale of Bryan Danielson matches, it was not very good.
Yes, it was like depending on your perverse desire of the Firefly Funhouse match. Like if you thought that was a good match, fine. But other than that, like that match with Danielson at the Royal Rumble was easily the best actual match he had. And somehow Danielson did something no one else could do, and that was drag a match out of him. It's like
The Firefly Funhouse thing is very not my thing.
I I watched it and it's like this was when I was clinically depressed and suicidal, and I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? Like this is either like it was the fact that like this was the semi main event of WrestleMania, and it was like you knew like this was not the match that would have happened had it been in a stadium like it was supposed to be. But it's like I'm torn on whether or not that it was better than an actual match would have been.
Uh, you know, that's a valid suspicion there. I always wondered what kind of match AJ Styles could have got out of the Undertaker if they'd have had an actual match.
Not as good as the Boneyard match, I'll bet.
Yeah, see, I don't know. It's fine. It's just I I like my wrestling to be wrestling. I like wrestling that is very wrestling oriented and has minimal fuckery and nonsense. So the cinematic matches that were not my thing.
By and large, I agree with you, but I really did like that Boneyard match. It was definitely
It was it was probably the best one of them. You know what the worst one was? The fucking swamp fight with
yes,
Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. Oh my God, that was
yes.
atrocious. At the horror show at Extreme Rules.
Oh, actually I don't think that the show was bad. Just that match was so bad it brought down the entire show. Like that
Yeah,
was that level of bad.
because it closed the show and it was so fucking terrible. Oh my God, that was
I think it had Drew McIntyre versus Dolph Ziggler, which I mean, even on their worst day is going to be a good match.
yeah.
It had Sasha versus Asuka, which from what I recall, it was a great match. I might have a different opinion if I rewatch it now.
Oh God, you know what else was on that show that was fucking terrible?
Trying to think of let's say the Fiend, but we just said the Fiend. I mean, that was when they were losing like 5 or 6 matches, so there couldn't have been that much on that damn show. Uh, I'm trying to think what else was happening at the time, and outside of Nia Jax murdering Kairi Sane or something, I can't imagine. I can't think of what else could have been very bad on that show.
The eye for an eye match.
Oh my God, yes. I I should have remembered that, but yeah, because like when you say something bad, I immediately think of like the worst workers, and so I'm like, so Seth Rollins and fucking Rey Mysterio were not the two people I'd think of for a bad match.
No. That just goes to show if you do enough booking, you can make great workers have a all-time stinker of a match.
That's the Vince Russo logic.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't Vince Russo all along. Maybe it was Vince McMahon coming up with all this horse shit.
I think Vince just got more and more unhinged as the years went on. Like there was a time, and I'm not defending or apologize anything that Vince McMahon has done to the wrestling business or otherwise, but there was a time that he was great at presenting his vision of pro wrestling, and that time is about 25 years ago.
Yeah. Honestly, it's funny because like if you look back, it all basically went to hell at the same time. Like, because that's when he replaced JR with Jonathan Coachman and then Joey Styles. And that's also the time you started hearing about how he was screaming at the announcers all show long. That was also when, like, the shows were already getting bad, but that was like when the shows really started going off the cliff, when they started doing the Eddie Guerrero's in Hell stuff. And it's like it all happened around the same time. And I think you can logically look back and point to that time as when he began, losing his mind.
Yeah.
I may have just been on NXT. I'd have to go back and press pause, but they're showing a Joe Hendry video, and one of the video clips was the Impact 1000 Fan Fest, and I know I was there, so I may be in the background talking like Rosemary or something. But it's like if you did, it's one of those you'd have to press pause at the right time kind of thing. But
you're there getting people to record the opening clips for the podcast.
There you go.
It's Bill I'm sorry, I was going to go off topic. It's Bill Alfonso, it's Rich Piccini. Who else is on the opening thing?
It's Nicola Talla, Rich Palladino, and oh my God, Piccini. Tony Cini. Tony Cini.
Oh, Tony Cini. Okay.
Yes. I feel so bad for Tony. I meant to have him on to talk about his video game. I got to message him again soon. But now we can insert a video of Joe Hendry talking at the Impact 1000 Fan Fest and me standing way back in the background.
I like Bill Alfonso, but I hate that fucking whistle thing so much. And I think he's like objectively the worst manager of all time based solely on how many otherwise good matches he makes fucking unwatchable.
I would go with that, but I'd also say that like ECW was full of bad managers. Like Judge Jeff Jones should not have been the manager of a world champion.
Man, even going back to the earliest days of ECW that I've been watching, we have Hunter Q. Robbins III. Wonder whatever happened to him. I need to know what happened to Hunter Q. Robbins III, and I need to know whatever became of Jay Sully.
See, I thought you were gonna say Jason because I started scratching my hives, because Jason is the sexiest man alive.
Yeah.
I always laughed at I'm not gonna say Lance did not like Jason, but it's like he didn't like him as a a manager in his group. He was always very specific. Like, no, Jason managed Justin, Don Marie managed me, and we were a team.
So I think somewhere recently on either like the 93 Raws or Saturday Night, Jason Knight was doing a job on one of those shows or another.
Did you begin scratching yourself because of the hives?
I may have. Yeah, he lost to Mr. Hughes.
That would make it to WWF 93.
Yeah, he also I just searching my program here for Jason Knight. He also lost to Lex Luger. He lost to Lex Luger on Raw in February and Mr. Hughes in April.
I was watching a few months ago, I was going through some 93 superstars. Don't ask me why I stopped, because I got no idea. But for 1 week and 1 week only, there was a 3-man team of Ted DiBiase, IRS, and Mr. Hughes. And I'm like, that would have been a really good trio. Like, I know DiBiase was pretty much on his way out, and Mr. Hughes just didn't work out. But it's like, man, Hughes could have been the bodyguard, the keeper of the money, etc., and learn how to work by being in their corner, especially after Jimmy Hart turned babyface.
Yeah, I don't know. Hughes was around forever, and then he was never like he was never very long for any territory. And I guess because he didn't want to learn how to fucking do shit. But like he would have probably been really good as like DiBiase's heater.
Yeah. So I know again people are gonna listen to this on Tuesday, but is Joe Hendry gonna win the NXT title, you think?
I don't know. Is he signed? Like, who's he
No,
signed with? Is he?
I think he's still signed with TNA. However, I did read a story that he's training at the PC.
Yeah.
I will say that I think TNA is really dropping the ball because like maybe he is on his way out, but he should have won the title at Slammiversary. Like, you know, fine, Nick Nemeth is a better wrestler. There's no doubt. But it's like you got this guy who's all over NXT every week, and that's not the guy that you have that you put the title on. So he shows up every week wearing the title. It's like they literally changed the X Division title on Friday to put it on Zachary Wentz just so he could show up on this show as the X Division champion.
Yeah, because didn't Speedball like just win it back?
Yeah, he won it in that amazing match at Slammiversary with Mustafa Ali. And it's like the second time that Speedball Mike Bailey won the belt and then immediately lost it. And the first time I was at the Bound for Glory when he lost to Kazarian, which was when we still thought Kazarian was in AEW because, you know, that hadn't fully come out yet. But it was like that was a fantastic match, and then they never wrestled again. Oh, yeah, because Kazarian cashed in for option C. So, I mean, there's a reason why they never had another match for the X Division title.
Okay, I have a question. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. It just occurred to me because when that the option C thing started, it was for like the Destination X pay-per-view.
Yes.
So now, like, is it a certain time of year or is it a certain time you have to have the X Division title? When at what point can an X Division champion exercise option C?
It's never been officially said since they got rid of the Destination X show. So it pretty much pops up whenever they want an excuse to have the X Division champion challenge for the world title. Because like the only times I can remember are Brian Cage cashed in to wrestle John Morrison. Whatchamacallit, Josh Alexander cashed in to wrestle Christian Cage at Bound for Glory. And then Frankie Kazarian cashed in to wrestle Josh Alexander at whatever the TNA Plus show was a month after Bound for Glory that year.
Huh.
But like
interesting.
Yeah. Like I always thought it was a fun gimmick. And it made for a nice like when they were still doing monthly pay-per-views, it did make for a neat little storyline once a year with all the X Division wrestlers busting their ass to try to win the title so they could be the one to cash in for a world title shot. Because I think the one year was just Austin Aries cashed in. That was the first year. Then the second year, like, was when Austin Aries dressed like Suicide to win the title from Sabin, but then he lost the title back anyway, which was a really cool angle. The him dressed as Suicide thing. And then like the one year, like I think they had like a gauntlet match at some point, like to be like because like Mike Bennett was the champion, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't the person that cashed in. And yeah, because that was when Lashley won every title in the company, and then because that's how they got rid of the Rounds title that I can't remember the name of.
The global title?
No, that wasn't the global title. The global title was
something. No, the grand title.
Yeah, there was the grand title because he won. He was the world champion, and then whoever he beat was both the X Division champion and the grand champion because they did an all or nothing match or a winner takes all match. And then Lashley just immediately vacated the other two belts, and the grand title was never seen again. And I mean, I don't watch enough NXT, but like, isn't the Heritage Cup the same thing except without the judging at the end? Because don't they do rounds or whatever?
Yeah, it's British rounds rules.
Yeah.
Which is effectively the same thing. According to my incomplete records here, Lashley won the X Division Championship from Eddie Edwards.
Okay. Yeah, Eddie Edwards. Like either Lashley had won the grand title as well, or Eddie Edwards had both. I just remember Lashley had all the belts.
As he should.
Yes. But that was also like that's when Lashley was doing Bellator. And at some point, at one of the years, it could have been the same year, could have been a different year. One of the years he kept the world title against EC3 at Bound for Glory. Then that was one of the years where they had him lose it on the first Impact afterwards. They lost it to Eddie Edwards. And then Lashley went off to Bellator. He wins his fight and then announces that, he wants Eddie Edwards because he wants his TNA world title back. And it's like, I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. I wonder if, because he's said to be a free agent these days, so I wonder if he's going to pop up somewhere interesting soon.
I'm not saying I hope he doesn't go to go to AEW because I don't want him and MVP and Shelton Benjamin to make money or whatever. But like, I just hope they don't go just because there's too many fucking people in AEW right now. But at the same time, I don't know if New Japan would really be his thing. And
I was just thinking that'd be a pretty sweet group for New Japan.
True, maybe. But it probably would work because the problem is if you're not going back to WWE, and again, I'm just trying to push them away from AEW just because they got too many people to begin with. It's like, but then at that point, you either have to go to New Japan or you're taking the big time drop to your TNAs and Game Changers. And hey, Lashley and Bloodsport, I bet that would be fucking great. Hell, Shelton Benjamin in Bloodsport. Yeah. I'd like to see Shelton Benjamin in Bloodsport too. But it's like, even with modern day where indie wrestling isn't stigmatized the way it used to be, it's like it's still a huge drop off, going from WWE or AEW to your TNAs, GCWs, well, not Evolve. Evolve's not a thing anymore. Beyond, etc.
I really liked Evolve.
I went to a couple Evolve shows when they were still. I went to the one when they were still having the NXT affiliation over WrestleMania 35 weekend, and I was like, the Street Profits were there. Actually, fucking like it was. If you didn't know any better, it was like WWE and AEW had a Worlds Collide show on Evolve because like Darby Allin wrestled Austin Theory in the main event, I think, and it's like, man, WWE and AEW are going head to head here in Evolve at La Boom.
I went to quite a few Evolve shows. I think I was at Darby Allin's Evolve debut when he wrestled Ethan Page. I think that was Mania weekend in Dallas.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm picturing the arena. Okay, so the only Evolve show I saw was the whatchamacallit, the WrestleMania 29 weekend, also in New York, but it was in New Jersey, and that's when they crowned the first champion.
Yeah, AR Fox, wasn't it?
I honestly don't remember.
My first Evolve show was WrestleMania weekend 2014 in New Orleans. Like, I don't think I'd ever even seen an Evolve show. And I got to town, that day, and it was like, what's going on? Well, I can go to this Evolve show. So I did, and it was pretty cool. And then, like, that summer, I started kind of watching the pay-per-views, and I was like, I really like hard-nosed technical wrestling, where grappling contest and then there's like a fist fight interspersed. So I really responded well to Biff Busick and Timothy Thatcher and Drew Gulak. So I was a really big Evolve fan from about, I don't know, 2014, 2016.
So I have to apologize because I lied. The main event of that show was not Austin Theory versus Darby Allin. Even though both were on the show, Darby Allin lost to Anthony Henry, and Austin Theory defeated Kyle O'Reilly in the main event. But
that was Kyle was already in WWE, right?
yeah. But like the undercard, it's like some of these matches I would have told you I did not see these people wrestle an independent show. The semi-main is Eddie Kingston and Joe Gacy defeating Mao and Konosuke Takeshita. Like,
wow.
Yeah. Montez Ford defeated Swerve Strickland. JD Drake defeated Angelo Dawkins. And that was after, and I remember this happened, but I don't remember why. But that immediately had followed a match where Angelo Dawkins squashed Colby Carino. Then we had the Anthony Henry Darby Allin match. And I'm reading this in reverse, by the way. The third match was AR Fox and Leon Ruff versus Alex Reynolds and John Silver. Yeah. Kazusada Higuchi, who I don't know, defeated Kurt Stallion. And the opener was Adrian Judy defeating Andre Chase, aka Harlem Bravado.
Former, not Evolve Tag Team Champions. They were the United Gate champions. That was basically the precursor to the Evolve Tag Team title.
And by the way, you were right. AR Fox did win the first Evolve title at a show I was at, Evolve 19. Let me see the finals. AR Fox defeated Sami Callihan in the finals. Underneath that, the Super Smash Brothers defeated the Young Bucks, aka the Dark Order. Defeated them.
The Young Bucks, aka the Dark Order?
Well, I meant like the Dark Order won the match. The semifinals of the tournament were Sami Callihan defeating Chuck Taylor and AR Fox defeating Ricochet. And I remember Chuck Taylor just because like and maybe it's just me misremembering, but I remember Chuck Taylor playing like a dick and being like a really good dick too. So, okay, talk about matches I would have bet I never saw because I imagine this was not his gimmick at the time, but I could be wrong. Match 3 on the show was Brian Kendrick and Johnny Gargano defeating Drew Gulak and Orange Cassidy. I'm like,
wow.
I remember a lot about that weekend. I do not remember Orange Cassidy doing the Orange Cassidy gimmick, which makes me think he was not doing it then. Or at least, the Orange Cassidy gimmick as we know it.
So he was actually on my first Evolve show, and I'm looking at the results. The main event of that show was Chris Hero defending the Evolve title against Trent. Semi-main, it was Johnny Gargano over Rich Swann, Ricochet over Tony Nese. And in the United Gate Championship match, the Bravado Brothers with Moose defeated the team of Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. And this was in 2014.
Nice. I'm trying to look at my pictures from that WrestleMania weekend to see if I can find Orange Cassidy. And I mean, I took a lot of pictures, but I was not a very good picture taker at the time. Plus, it didn't help that we were kitty corner to a giant light stand that was bearing down on us. Of all things, I got some really good pictures of AR Fox, but I'm not looking for pictures of AR Fox right now. So Orange Cassidy is here wearing blue jeans. Of course, that doesn't really mean anything. So at the very least, he's got the uniform on. I'm legitimately surprised if he was doing the Orange Cassidy gimmick like as we know it at the time. I'm a little surprised he's been doing it as long as he has.
Which ant was he? Was he Silver Ant?
I found out years later that he was one of the ants. I
Yeah,
think
I never watched Jakara.
I got on their email blast because I remember them doing a contest where someone was going to win lifetime tickets to Chikara shows. And even though they never came to Massachusetts, I like lifetime tickets. And I like free stuff. So I remember getting all their emails, and I remember wanting to go to, like, the first time they did King of Trios, when they started bringing in like the really random teams. Like I remember like Haku and the Barbarian were in one year. I'm like, man, I really want to go to that show. And of course I didn't. But it's like I bought the DVDs of the shows. I'm like, it was like, yeah, this wasn't that good. And part of it is, watching independent wrestling on DVD. I got spoiled by production values. And I think I'm a little better now, but it's like still, it's like it's hard to watch, independent shows on DVD because it's just,
Yeah.
production sucks. And here we thought we wouldn't have a long show, and here we've gone almost 90 minutes. It's funny because I did not write down what we were talking about because I just kind of, I don't know, I just was lazy and I was watching NXT. Oh, so I forgot because I didn't do this for the Wednesday show, and I wanted to do this before Thursday because the NFL regular season starts Thursday. And so it's time for the yearly, the third annual Something Else NFL preview segment of the show. And it's going to be the same as the last two. Buffalo Bills 17-0 Super Bowl champions. Prove me wrong. And that concludes the annual Something Else NFL preview.
Well, there you go.
Yes, because you told me a few weeks ago you were not a football fan.
I have never watched a football game on purpose.
It's scripted, right?
Well, I would hope so. That's just not good business when you don't control your outcomes.
Yeah.
I convinced myself that it was a work when the year that the Saints won, like after Hurricane Katrina. I'm like, that's too perfect. Somebody made that happen.
By the way, the match hasn't ended yet, but Joe Hendry just got the visual pinfall, but Ethan Page's leg was under the rope.
Oh.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's, I could be wrong, but it's pretty obvious Ethan Page is going to win here.
Yeah, that stands to reason.
Trick did take a bump, so new referee came running in. And I know it's 2024, so we're not allowed to say the referees' names again, but I don't know who the fuck this referee is. He's, a different African-American gentleman.
What are we going to call this show? Did we say anything funny this week?
I mean, we say funny things all the time. And Trick just prevented other referee from counting the fall that Ethan Page would have won the match on. Trick is now pointing at the mat and at himself, and is now pointing at Ethan, and he's yelling at Ethan, and the other referee's right behind him. So of course, Ethan swings, Trick ducks, and the other referee takes a bump. Ethan just kicked Joe Hendry in the dick and has picked him up for the border toss, or whatever, Ethan Page calls it.
Ego's edge.
2, 3. Ethan Page is still your NXT heavyweight champion.
That's good. I'm a big Ethan Page fan, but started seeing him in Evolve whenever he started there, and just always thought he was very good.
I fell in love with him during the pandemic, watching him and Josh Alexander as the North in TNA.
Oh yeah, a very good team. Yeah.
Yes, and when I met him in Danhausen, and I told him, it's like, I could sit here and tell you about AEW, but I could spend hours talking to you about TNA and you in the North. And we had a fun little talk about that because, to be honest, most of the people in line were there just to meet Danhausen, and I met both of them. But yeah, I told Ethan and he agreed. that the one thing I really didn't like was when they did the match where he wrestled himself on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
That was
I remember that actually.
That was really, really fucking stupid.
It was very goofy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think the show name needs to be some kind of reference to autoerotic asphyxiation.
How about autoerotic asphyxiation?
There you go.
There we go. All right, so episode 120, autoerotic asphyxiation. I gotta look up how to spell that.
All right,
but
we gotta.
Although this is a Mid-South show, so spelling it wrong would be totally in character.
You got to put it in quotation marks, though. That's the Mid-South way.
Should I put the whole thing in quotations or just asphyxiation?
I think we should close the show in the manner that Jim Ross closed this episode of Mid-South. We gotta go. Bye.